Hi, Sarah.
Hi.
Welcome to Frich.
Hi. Thanks so much. Thanks so much for having me.
I think that your career choice is really, really inspiring, not just to me, but to the whole team. And I would love to learn a little bit more about the work you do on a daily basis. For everyone else listening, can you just tell a little bit more about yourself and then the work that you do at CHIPS?
I've been at CHIPS, which stands for Community Help in Park Slope, for about 3 years now. And CHIPS is a nonprofit in Brooklyn. Our aim, sort of a lofty goal, is to ameliorate hunger and housing insecurity in the city. And we do that really through two sort of branches of programming. Um, we have food services and residents. So our food services, we do hot meals 6 days a week, and then we also provide people with pantry goods 2 times a week on site, and then 3 or 4 times a week off site through a mobile pantry van that we have. Um, and those programs, through our hot meal program, we serve around 4,000 meals a week. And then through our pantry program, we do around 700 pantry bags a week. Our residence is on a super different scale. It's just 9 studio apartments in the building that we occupy in Park Slope. And it is sort of transitional housing for pregnant women or women with young children. They can stay for up to a year, and while they're with us, they receive a range of support services. And then the big thing is like help finding permanent housing. That's our goal, is to have everyone move into permanent housing. Um, and that is it's a cool program because it's so small. It can be kind of tailored to um, our residents, to the people who live there. We can sort of adjust things based on what they want and need, what they're looking for. So that's CHIPS. Um, my role at CHIPS, I in the past year transitioned into communications and community engagement. My job is really all about showcasing the work that we do, um, telling the stories of people who we serve, or our volunteers, or our staff. Um, and then also, I think especially lately, a big part of my role has been connecting the work that we do to the sort of like social and political climate. Um, so that's the comms part, and then the community engagement is really just about like finding and reaching out to groups that might align with us, or talking to people who want to support us or deepen their support or commitment to CHIPS. Talking to people about how they can do that. Um, yeah, it was my first job out of college. I think I really care a lot about food access and food insecurity, and so that's sort of what initially brought me there.
You and I both live in New York City, where Chips is obviously based. So I wanted to give a little bit of more context because I do think that when most people think of New York City, you kind of imagine this wealthy urban population. The reality in New York City is actually quite different. And the reason why New York City can run so smoothly is because there's a lot of quote unquote invisible people that help it run smoothly. Um, and unfortunately, the reality is that these people don't get paid for the work that they do in a way that allows them and their families to live a dignified life, to be honest. And to give a little bit more context, 13% of US households are classified as at risk for food insecurity. So, food insecurity meaning that people are continuously stressed about having enough food to eat. But in New York City, that's 40%, which is insane. It's almost half the people living here. And I think it's again, like, kind of like this invisible group of people that constitutes almost half of the city. Um, and since it is such a big chunk of people, New York City is such a huge city, such a diverse city, maybe it would be helpful for us to understand more about like the infrastructure behind chips. Like, how can you actually be able to continuously run and provide these free meals for people? Maybe you can start with how many people work at Chips?
Yeah. So we've actually grown quite a bit in the past like 3 or 4 years. Right now we have around, I think it's just under 30 employees. And that's a mix of part-time and full-time. I think it's about like half part-time, half full-time.
Maybe you can tell us a little bit more, like, who do you usually see coming for these free meals? And maybe there are some misconceptions that people might have of people that frequent these places. I would assume that, it's not just homeless people or like people that are unemployed, but it's actually people that do have jobs, but they just cannot make ends meet. But I think it would be just interesting to, if you have that insight of who are the people that you guys see on like a weekly or daily basis come through.
Yeah, definitely. Um I mean, all sorts of people come to us for food. Um, I think you're right that I think first of all, there is definitely a stigma around hunger and needing help with
Mhm.
food access, and I think that there's a sort of like subconscious image of the poor and destitute lining up for
Mhm.
whatever food they can get. When people think of soup kitchen, I think that's what people often think of. Um and like on the ground in like at free meal programs and food pantry programs, that's really not the case. We I mean like you said, 40% of people in New York don't have enough money for food. And so that's a huge percentage. That means
Mhm.
all sorts of people are hungry. And we have a lot of people with families who come to us for food. We have a lot of working class people come to us for food. We have people who like come hop over on a lunch break to get food
Mm.
from us. So um, it's really a big range, and I think knowing that there's this stigma attached to food access makes um for us, I think it makes prioritizing the dignity of our guests really, really important.
Mhm.
And also the quality of our food. Um we we recently moved or transitioned all of our pantry stops and our on-site pantry um, into a client choice model. And what that means is that um, like visiting our pantry is a little bit closer to like shopping
Mm, nice.
um, than it was before. People can pick and choose what items they want. So we have produce items. We also have non-perishable items. And get people have more agency over what actually goes in their pantry bag,
Mhm.
as opposed to getting a prepackaged bag with things that they may or may not be able to use,
Or just be
um,
allergic to.
or yeah,
Yeah.
or yeah,
Or not like.
or not want to use. Yeah,
Yeah, yeah.
totally. It's important for people to have agency, and um, I think a lot of the people who come to us don't have a lot of choices,
Mhm.
and so being able to yeah, incorporate that into our programming has been really important to us. Um I think respect and compassion, and also the understanding that all sorts of people um need better food access. Um those are all things that we really think about and care about at Chips.
So many people have this like approach to community support that if you need help, you must accept anything and everything.
Right.
And if you dare to choose or decline, then you don't need help enough. But that's so faulty. Like you should be able to say, "Hey, I just don't like tomatoes, so
Right. Right.
I don't
Choices
want
are
to
really
eat that."
important, and I think like yeah, people should people have the right to choose what they like and don't like. So it's not just about like yeah, it's not just about like what you can and can't eat. It's also just like it's a preference thing, and
Yeah.
preferences are important. And I think make us all feel human and valued,
Yeah.
and so that yeah, it's been a I think it's been a really good change
Yeah.
for us, and a really important one.
So nice to hear. There's something that you mentioned that I also find so fascinating. I think it's such a perfect metaphor for New York City in general. Um, where Chips is located is like right between Gowanus and Park Slope. And maybe for people that don't know New York City or Brooklyn that well, those are like fairly different neighborhoods. um, I'm just curious if how that affects Chips and maybe the volunteers that show up or the people that show up for support or just the way that Chips has been able to run for so many decades. And if that, like, how do you see that position, the geographical positioning of your organization just be like a larger reflection of New York City in general?
Yeah. Yeah, totally. I think being like right on the cusp of Park Slope um has been really important for us. We've been in Park Slope since the early 70s. And then also, I mean, it really like Park Slope really looms large as this like wealthy and influential neighborhood, which it is. And it's also it's full of people who have the means to help and also want to help,
Mhm.
which has been really fantastic for us. I think sometimes people like sometimes when I say that I work at this food pantry in Park Slope, people are like, who comes to that? Like, um, but I mean, we've talked about this already, but the truth is that there are hungry people and people who are low income all over the city,
Mhm.
um, and and we also are close to like we're less than half a mile from the a NYCHA facility, affordable housing facility in Gowanus, and that's like a 10-minute walk away. So,
So nice.
um, there are people who come from farther away, but there are also people that are right in the neighborhood who need food, and we see like 500 people a day. That's a lot of people
Yeah.
who are needing um, food. Um, but yeah, I think it's also it's also been really helpful for us that we have people who have the means to support that. And I think that something that is like cool to me about chips is that I think it sort of acts as this avenue for like some amount of redistribution,
Mhm.
um because of its positioning, and I think that feels like a yeah, like important work to be doing or contributing to.
I love the way that you said it that because of your geographic positioning and because also New York City is so dense and everyone's kind of on each other
Yeah.
all the time, you actually do work as this very beautiful sort of distribution between the really rich and wealthy that have surplus resources, but also time to
Mhm.
go and volunteer or to go and do these things. And then the people that are s- like really in need for these resources, that they're not so far away as we might imagine. They're actually like neighbors right next to each other, like a 10-minute walk away, which is kind of crazy. I wanted to maybe ask like a little more specific numbers.
Yeah.
Do you know how much funding does CHIPS go through each month? So now we've kind of heard that you serve like up to 500 people a day. You have all these like additional resources for people. How much money does it take each month?
Yeah. So our budget this year was 2.4 million. So that's 200,000 a month.
Hmm.
Next year our budget is going up to just under 3 million. We're serving more meals and more pantry bags year after year, and
Amazing.
um so as we grow our budget will too.
Hmm.
Um but yeah, that's like very broad strokes.
Okay, so 200K a month. How much does it cost for you guys to feed one person?
Yeah. So one meal costs around 450. Um and then a pantry bag like $15 covers the cost of a pantry bag. And a pantry bag is um obviously uncooked food that is meant to last or meant to feed a family of 3 or 4 people for 3 or 4 days.
Oh wow. For
Yeah, so
$15.
it's
That's really good.
yeah, it is. I think we are able to keep our prices relatively low because we have, we buy a lot of stuff in bulk.
Mhm.
We have wholesale prices from like vendors that we have relationships with.
Mhm.
And then also, obviously, or maybe not obviously, but of course, we get a lot of in-kind donations. So donations of food and physical items. And that, that really helps us keep costs down as well. We also do food rescue, so we pick up like damaged food or food that can't be sold from grocery stores or from bakeries. Like we'll pick up bagels at the end of the day
Mhm.
that they won't sell the next day. Um, so those types of things also allow us to keep our costs um, for the actual food relatively low.
Well, let's switch gears a little bit because you obviously do like the food part, but one of the things that I loved learning about you guys that maybe wasn't so obvious to me at first is that you also help, like you mentioned, with free housing for new mothers. And obviously, we all know that New York City has notoriously high rents. Um, Maybe we can talk a little bit more about the cost of doing that. Like, how much would it cost to house one mother and her child, and what is the work that actually needs to go in from your guys' side? Like you obviously mentioned, like things that you might not even imagine. Like you mentioned that you need obviously a receptionist 24/7. Like
Mhm.
small things like that that might help us understand the cost and the labor that goes into helping one mother.
Yeah. Yeah. So um, it costs around $3,000 for housing and support services for a mother and child. And that's pretty low compared
Mhm.
to like city shelters. Their cost is around 6,000 for to house a person for a month. Um, and for us, I mean, there's all sorts of things that go into that budget. We when people move in, we they move into fully furnished apartments with that we also outfit with like sort of home good essentials, so
Mhm.
like towels and sheets and pots and pans and
Mhm.
um, things like that. And those are all things that when the residents move out, they can take with them into their
That's
like
nice.
new home.
Mm.
Um, and then also, I mentioned a little bit about programming that we and like support that we try to provide to the residents. So we have like in our budget we have flexibility to if a resident wants to take some sort of like educational program or job training course that has a cost associated,
Mhm.
we can often sponsor that.
Okay, I feel like this is gonna be a little bit of a difficult question, but obviously I imagine that you cannot help everyone. How do you guys go about choosing who gets to stay with you and who you have to pass on?
Yeah, yeah, that's definitely, I mean, it's definitely a challenge.
Mhm.
We generally take referrals, or we try to take referrals. So we
Mhm.
have a few organizations that we work with
Mhm.
that will refer people directly
Mhm.
to us. Um, but yeah, it's a small program. It's
Right.
nine women, and people can stay there for up to a year. So it's not like we have that much turnover.
Mhm.
Obviously, if people find permanent housing sooner, then we have slightly more turnover. But uh, it's not a big program.
Mhm.
I think one of the things that we really try to do is refer people out to other organizations, so people that we can't help, um, make sure that they get connected with someone else who might be able to.
Do you have some sort of like criteria or like an interview process or
Yeah, we have I mean, we don't have like our criteria is like that it's a woman who is either in her 3rd trimester of pregnancy or has a child under 3. Like, the criteria is pretty broad,
Mhm.
but we do have, like, an interview process,
Mhm.
to make sure that people are a good fit for the program,
Mhm.
um, but we also, I think have these it's really helpful to have these relationships with,
Yeah.
like, other programs, that can refer people to us.
Let's switch gears a little bit and talk about you. Um, One, obviously, we reached out to you because you work with Chips and like the team just thinks it's such a great organization. But I do think that the entire team also just kind of like looked at your profile and like quite frankly, I think I also really admire you. I know that you went to Yale and I looked up some stuff around Yale and like around third of graduates go into like either finance or consulting that are very, very high paying industries. And I have no doubt in mind that if you wanted to go down that path, you could have done that as well. Um, and then at the same time, I'm obviously making an assumption, but choosing to work at Chips does not really match the same earning potential. And I think it's admirable that you choose to go down this path where you are, in a way, making a personal sacrifice in terms of your sort of future earning potential. Um, and you ultimately chose to not cater just for yourself, but to help those in need. Maybe you can tell us a little bit more about that decision. And I think it would be also really cool to learn how having that kind of education has helped you in your work. Because I think a lot of people might assume that someone that's really highly educated or has so many job options wouldn't go down this path. But again, back to like your point of people in need deserving respect and deserving highly trained and highly skilled people to help them. Um, yeah, I just would love to hear a little bit more about those choices.
Yeah. Um, yeah, I mean, I think I have always known or been wanted to work in like the public interest sphere, and I think especially direct services. And then I think like going to college, I studied history, and I think learning about how um a lot of the social inequities that we face sort of been like baked into policies that
Mm,
often were like pretty explicitly designed um to keep disadvantaged people disadvantaged, to
mm,
increase social stratification, like all of these types of things. I think um yeah, like learning about our history as a country
mm,
um like drove the point home for me that working in public interest was important. Also will say on the like sort of personal sacrifice note,
mm,
I think one thing that is like important to note is that I feel really lucky in a lot of ways. I um graduated from college without any debt, and my parents supported me while I was in college, and I got a job like pretty much as soon as I moved to New York. I think that there are like I think that there are people who would look at my life and think that there are sacrifices that I'm making. I like live with roommates and I don't eat out very often.
mhm.
But I also really love my roommates and I
Yeah,
like cooking.
yeah.
Um, and so I think it doesn't feel to me like I'm making this huge sacrifice. I think it feels like the work is feels important
Mhm,
enough to me, and I think like yeah, the like luxuries that I might be giving up
mhm.
um sort of pale in comparison to the importance of the work.
Yeah.
Um yeah, and then I think you know, I mentioned in terms of like how my education has helped me, I think just having this sense of like I don't know, knowledge about the way that we got to where we are today in
Mhm,
terms of social inequity, I think is really important. I think like working in direct services, it's really important to have an understanding that like people are up against like a whole like decades and decades
mhm,
of policies meant to keep them in the place that they are. And sort of understanding that it's not like there's I think there's no such thing as like I don't know, when people are struggling to make ends meet, it's not like a personal responsibility thing. It's
mhm,
not like a this person isn't working hard enough or this person isn't doing enough. And I think having this sort of like historical perspective um, is a really important um, sort of perspective to take into
Mhm.
doing the actual like direct service work.
Yeah. I love everything that you said. I feel like we could just take each part of it apart and talk about it for hours. But one thing that I do think is so important to talk about is that there isn't just one route, and especially because obviously at Frich we talk a lot about for young people career choices and just setting yourself up financially in a way that works for you and makes you happy. And it's not always about making the most amount of money, but it's about finding that balance that works for you. And I think there's so much importance being put and so much glamorization around, doing these high paying jobs, but what at the end of the day, you're burnt out, exhausted, you hate your job, you're not really providing any value to your community. And if your job disappeared tomorrow, no one would care. And I think those are conversations that maybe we're not having enough when we're talking about careers and just personal choices in our early 20s. So I
Yeah.
love hearing you talk about it and kind of, again, like maybe debunking a little bit this idea of quote unquote like personal sacrifice. I think this is something that has been sort of weighing on me throughout the whole conversation and prepping for this conversation is how do you deal with the mental weight of your work? Because I think what you're seeing and experiencing every day, and even just like the idea of having to turn some people away because you just don't have enough resources to help everyone, how do you deal with that?
Yeah, no, I think that's a great question, and I think it definitely is a challenge. I think sometimes for me personally, I can get sort of caught up in thinking that the services that we're providing and the work that we're doing is just like a band-aid on this
Mm,
gaping wound of economic inequality in the US.
mm,
And ultimately that's not wrong.
mhm,
But I but it still has to happen.
mhm,
People need to eat, and for any other nonprofit sector, the same applies. People need legal representation. People need healthcare. People need, joy and art in their lives. People need accessible education. There's this whole range of support services, and things that nonprofits work towards that people really need in the here and now. And no one organization, no one job is going to address, all of the ills in the world or in the country. But it's still work that is worth doing. And I think reminding myself of that and also like seeing that in the people that we do get to help um, is has been really important. And then also I think that I've said this a few times that I really value my coworkers.
mm,
And I think one of the things that has been so amazing about working at Chips has been getting to work with people who I really feel aligned with.
mhm.
And I think that helps an enormous amount in the day to day and in the times that are challenging, like being surrounded by people that I feel like really care about a lot of the same things that I do, has been has been amazing.
Okay, and then last question. As we enter Christmas and whatever, December, all the holidays, what is the number one thing that people can do or give to actually be helpful? What is it that we can do?
Yeah. I mean, honestly, I think the number one thing is giving money.
Mhm,
You know, I said earlier, like some of the numbers, donation of under $5 can cover the cost of a meal.
yeah,
$15 covers the cost of a pantry bag. So, $100 donation covers over 20 meals and um, uh, a little under 7 pantry bags.
mhm,
And our budget, the biggest slice of our budget is individual donations.
that's incredible.
I think this year it was like 47%
That's incredible.
individual donors. So the small donations or donations that feel small really add up and really do make a big difference. I also think we always encourage people to become monthly donors.
Mhm,
I think setting aside what might feel like a small amount every month, $10, $20, really adds up over the course of the year, and means it like makes a big difference for us. And then of course, um, volunteering and donating, like in-kind donations, so donations of physical items of food, or in the winter we collect warm winter gear,
Mhm.
pretty much all winter long. Um, Toiletries, we also distribute toiletries as needed. So those things also make a huge a world of difference
Yeah.
for us. And I think there are different avenues of support that are right for different people.
Yeah.
Um, yeah.
I think that's incredible. I think maybe it's just a really good reminder to put out there for people that if you donate just like $5 a
Yeah,
week, that's
skip a coffee
yeah, that's a
once a
whole
week.
meal
Yeah.
each week. And I think that's a really nice reminder to put out there that it really does. And you guys are like living proof that it all adds up. And just the community support by itself is half of the amount of money that you end up spending over the year. That's super cool to hear. And also, because I've been doing research on you guys, and I'm gonna put this out there, and I thought it was really cool that you have like little like Amazon wish lists for the people living in your housing, so you
Yeah.
can
Yeah,
purchase
so it's
things.
like we want it to be tailored to our residents.
Yeah,
And yeah, and that's a really nice, I think, nice way to contribute, and nice way to directly support the residents. Yeah.
this is something that I have personally always wondered.
Yeah.
If you are a volunteer, are you actually being helpful? Because sometimes you're just like, I'm just standing here in the middle and I don't know what I'm doing. Is that actually impactful? Like, how does that feel for you guys
Yeah.
on the receiving end?
Yeah, no, I totally have had like a similar experience as volunteering, or being like, "Oh my God, too many hands."
Yeah.
But I mean, for us, we were founded by a group of volunteers in our like earliest days. It was like 10 volunteers in a church basement, cooking meals on a hot plate. Um, so volunteers, we were started by volunteers, and they really continue to be our sort of our bread and butter. We have 30 to 40 volunteers come in every day that we operate, so that's 6 days a week.
Mhm.
And our um our output, like the what we're doing day to day, um is our staff is relatively small
Mhm.
for our output. And so having volunteers is, I mean, we would not, like, absolutely, hands down, we would not be able to do what we do without volunteers. It just wouldn't be possible. So I think, even when there are moments where it's like, oh my God, so much is happening and
Mhm.
there's nothing for me to be doing, um, we, we really, really need and appreciate our volunteers so much.
That's amazing. Okay, last question. Where can people find you, or like if they want to donate or learn more about chips or transfer you hundreds of thousands of dollars?
Yes. Yes,
How do they
please.
find you guys?
So our website is chipsonline.org, or if you Google Chips Park Slope, we come up. Um, we are also on Instagram and Facebook at Chips Fourth Ave. Follow us for like updates on our programming and on what we need, those types of things. Um, and yeah, I don't know, just take a look, check us
Yay.
out.
Awesome. Thank you so much for coming.
Yeah, thank you so much for having me.